Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. This is Hunter and Shane. Say what up, Shane.
What's up, nerds?
We are back. This time we are taking a look at the Elven Council Precon deck from Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth. Shane, you had the opportunity to upgrade the deck last time and made it into a $100 upgrade. This time we're going to a bigger budget, a $300 upgrade. I'm excited to see what you do with this, but first and foremost, go ahead and talk about the deck, talk about the face commander, what you're going with, and how you're going to make it work.
The base commander we're going to stick with is Galadriel, Elven-Queen. She's 2, a green and a blue, for a 4/5 elf noble. She has Will of the Council. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if another elf enters the battlefield under your control this turn, starting with you, each player votes for Dominion or Guidance. If Dominion gets more votes, the ring tempts you. Then you put a +1/+1 counter on the ring bearer. If Guidance gets more votes, or the vote is tied, you draw a card. So with this card at your helm, you're just going to really be caring about playing a lot of elves, and then getting to do a little bit of voting, seeing if either you get to get tempted by the ring, or you're just going to draw a card, and you're still just going to be amassing a huge board of elves, buffing them all up, and swinging for hopefully lethal.
Yeah, we all know elves are a very scary tribe when it comes to Magic the Gathering. Well, I'm excited to see what you did with the deck. Let's go ahead and jump straight into the additions. Shane, what are you adding into this deck?
Well, as you can see on screen at the moment, I'm going to be grabbing all the 100 editions. I loved all these editions. They're still going to be coming over to the 300. If you wanted to see why I chose all these cards, there'll be a link down in the description to go to the $100 list, and I'll go into more depth of why I added all these cards and kind of my thought process to all of them. But I loved them. They're coming from the 100. They'll be in the 300.
Yeah, lots of crazy elves that you threw into the deck. I'm excited to see what you do with this 300. So, what are we adding that's bigger value?
Well, since we're getting a $300 budget now, I looked at some way more expensive creatures. Something that I really wanted to put in the 100, but obviously this would not fit in at all. So the first one being Eladamri, Lord of Leaves. It is just 2 green mana for a 2/2 legendary creature, Elf Warrior. It says other elf creatures have Forest Walk, and it also says other elves have Shroud. This card is a powerhouse in your deck. All your creatures are going to be like basically untargetable besides, the unlucky board wipe, but you can't target them anymore. And if your opponent has a forest, they can't block any of your creatures.
Yeah, Eladamri is a crazy elf. Just being able to just have all of your elves now have Shroud. You just can't deal anything with it. You have to get rid of Eladamri, and then maybe you can go ahead and throw some boots. I know you had boots in the deck. Make this not unable to be targeted as well. Your elves are going to get out of control, really wide, and unable to be targeted. That's nuts.
Yeah, and I do want to, acknowledge it is an expensive card, but with the bigger budget, I thought that this would go great in the elf deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sticking with the theme of having a bigger budget, I wanted to put in Nisa Resurgent Animist. She's 2 and a green for a 3/3 elf scout. She has landfall, and it says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of any color. Then, if this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an elf or elemental card. Put that card into your hand and the rest of the bottom of the library in a random order. Now, we're not going to be going crazy with this landfall, so we're probably not going to be getting that second trigger that often, but just that first ability, being able to net an additional mana every time you play a mana, that can really boost you even in the early games.
Yeah, extra mana is always great, but I know you've got ways to make that second ability trigger, so it's still really good, especially for elves.
Yeah, and it's an elf, so it'll trigger your commander. Another elf that I wanted to throw in here that I didn't get to in the 100, we're putting in Marwyn the Nurturer. 2 and a green for a 1/1 elf druid. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on her. She also says tap, add an amount of green mana equal to her power. So you're going to play this creature and then play all your elves, make her super big, and now she's going to be a dork that can tap for a bunch of mana.
That's going to be a bunch of green mana.
Bunch of green mana. And, a little foreshadowing. There will be a couple of ways to make infinite mana in the future of this upgrade. This card is going to help you with that, but, I'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, I loved all those creatures, but they were all green, and I know in the last video we also added a whole bunch of green cards, but this budget, it looks like you're adding some blue ones. Let's start with the instant. What are we getting in there?
We are adding some blue cards in here. I really felt like I needed some more interaction with the board, And so I'm throwing in Cyclonic Rift. 1 and a blue for an instant. It says return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. It also has Overload for 6 and a blue, which basically just means that you can replace the word target with each. I'm sure everyone is familiar with this card, but in a deck where we just want, our opponents to have nothing on the field when we have all of our elves, this is an amazing board wipe.
Yeah, Cyclonic, you're being an elf tech that has blue in it. It's kind of a must there. You finally have a way to interact with the whole board.
Yep. There's this, and then there's another board wipe in the deck that, where you can name a creature type. It's just another way to where you can one-sided board wipe your opponents, and it's amazing.
Yep, that is a great instant as always, but show me some of the enchantments.
Well, again, with the bigger budget, and I wanted to throw in some more blue cards, I'm throwing in a couple enchantments. The first of which is going to be Ristic Study, 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays the 1. Again, kind of with Cyclonic, I'm sure everyone's very aware of this card. It's a good one. This deck really loves the card draw, and Ristic does card draw better than anything else, so I'm putting it in the deck. We're also going to be throwing in Kindred Discovery for 3 and 2 blue, another enchantment. As it enters the battlefield, you may choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. So, once again, play this card, declare elf. Now, whenever you cast an elf or attack with an elf, you're drawing a card. This is going to be nuts. You're going to draw so many cards, dude.
Once again, adding blue to elves is an incredible thing. 2 of the best blue card draws in all of EDH.
I heard you like card draw, so I'll give you some card draw.
Yeah, I do like card draw. I also like artifacts. Show me the artifacts you're adding.
Yeah. I saw a couple of people mention this in the 100. I didn't really want to put any kind of infinite combo in the 100, but now we're in the 300. We're a more tuned deck. I'm going to put in a couple of combos that just give you infinite mana. The first of which is Umbral Mantle. 3 generic mana for an artifact equipment. A cryptic creature has pay 3, untap. This creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Equip cost of 0. So you're going to have a bunch of guys in here that are going to tap for multiple mana. One of which is the Elfish Archdruid, another one being that Morrowind of the Nurturer that I was talking about. We also have Prince Titania, Circle of Dream Druids. All these creatures are going to be able to tap for more than just a couple of mana, so maybe 3, maybe 4. And you'll be able to tap for that, untap this equipment. Whatever creature has this equipment on it will get bigger, and you'll start netting mana. Pretty good little combo for infinite mana. The other is going to be Staff of Domination. It is 3 generic mana for an artifact. It has pay 1, untap Staff of Domination. It has pay 2, tap, you may gain 1 life. It also has you can pay 3, tap, untap target creature. Or you can pay 4, tap, tap target creature. Or you can pay 5, tap, draw a card. So this is going to be similar to the Mantle. You'll be able to tap one of your mana producers for a little bit more than whatever this card wants to do. You can untap it, tap it, untap it, tap it. Just generate. Once you get infinite mana, you can also gain infinite life. You can draw as much cards as you want. You can do a lot with these cards. So these are fantastic to put in the deck.
Yeah, both of these together on the field, you're going to draw your whole deck. That's
If
pretty
you
much.
want to, yes.
You're going to draw your whole deck and play your whole deck, and then you just kind of win at that point.
Yeah, something like that.
That's mean, man.
But fun.
How about the land base? Are we changing anything for the lands?
Yeah, since we got a bigger budget, I want to throw in some better lands. So the first of which is going to be Fabled Passage. It's a land. Sacrifice Fabled Passage. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. If you control 4 or more lands, untap that land. This is just another way for Nissa to trigger twice. That's fantastic. We like that. I'm also throwing in Misty Rainforest. It's a land. You can tap it, pay a life, sacrifice Misty Rainforest. Search your library for a forest or land card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. So again, you need to fix your mana and trigger Nissa again. And lastly, Dreamroot Cascade. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. It'll tap for a green or a blue. It is from the slow land cycle, but I kind of like these because if you play them later in the game, they'll just come untap for you. I always prefer untap lands over tap lands, obviously.
100%, man. I agree. And Fable Passage, Mission Rainforest, that trigger for Nissa, that's That's a great addition. But is that going to do it for all of the additions for this $300 upgrade?
Yep, that's the 300, man. Just tuning it a little bit, making it a little more scary. And that's it.
All right. Well, as always, it is time for the sad part of the video. This is the removal section. We have to say goodbye to some awesome art from the Lord of the Rings. Shane, what are we cutting?
Similarly to my additions, all the cuts from my $100 upgrade will be coming over. So on the screen right now, you'll see all the cards that I cut from that $100 video. Again, if you want to see my reasoning for all of these, the description will have a link. You can watch it. They basically just didn't hit the mark for me. This first batch was just a lot of cutting non-elves and things that weren't as good. So yeah, those are all going to be coming over.
Back in the 100 video, I understand why you made those cuts. They still make sense here. But we're moving on to the $300 cuts. What are we getting rid of in the creature department?
This first cut is going to be kind of a sad one. We're going to be cutting Gandalf, Westward Voyager. 3, a green and a blue for a 5/5 Avatar Wizard. It says when you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, each opponent reveals the top card of their library. If any of those cards share a creature type with the spell, copy that spell, choose new cards for the copy. Each opponent draws a card, otherwise, you draw a card. It seems like he could be a cool commander on his own, but we're not really casting big spells, and he's not a elf, and he's just not going to be in the deck anymore. I'm sorry, Gandalf. You're voyaging westward. Bye-bye. We're also going to get rid of Woe's Pathfinder. 1 a green for a 1/1 human shaman. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. You can also pay 6 and a green, tap it. Another target creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample until end of turn. It's cool little mana dork, but it's not an elf, and its ability is very big and only gives it to 1 creature. The stuff we've been adding are way better than this, so this little comment's gonna get out.
Yeah, those two make a lot of sense. Not elves. Leave the deck.
Yeah, sadly.
What else are we getting rid of in the sorcery department?
We're gonna get rid of some stuff that I just didn't think fit. First of which is Devastation Tide. 3 and 2 blue for sorcery. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hand. It does have a miracle cost of 1 and a blue, so if it's on top of your library before you draw it, you can cast it for that. This just seems like a worse cyclonic because this is also going to hit you. I don't like it. I'm going to cut it. We're also going to cut Seeds of Renewal. 6 and a green for sorcery. It has Undaunted. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each opponent. Return up to 2 target cards from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Seeds of Renewal. I know this card will never cost 7. Hopefully you'll be playing with 3 other people, whatever. Those will be cheaper, but returning the 2 cards, it didn't hit the mark for me, so I'm cutting it.
Yeah, and say you are playing EDH with less than 3 other opponents, which is totally doable. You could play with one-on-one if you really wanted to. That would make this cost more, and it's just, for that, it's just too expensive.
Yeah, I'm going to choose not to. So we're cutting it.
How about an instant?
I'm going to be cutting Learn from the Past. It's 3 and a blue for an instant. Target player shuffles their graveyard into their library. Draw a card. For this mana cost, I just don't think it does enough. I get that it's in this deck because you might be playing against that graveyard deck that Steven's playing, and that might seem okay, if you're trying to not die, you draw a card as well. But, you're just kind of delaying it because they're just going to be getting access to those cards once again into their graveyard. You're not actually exiling the graveyard, so I thought it was a bit much for the mana cost, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, it's slow. 4 mana to shuffle. I mean, you could do it to yourself, but it doesn't really do too much. How about some other permanent spells? Are we getting rid of some other permanents?
We are. I'm going to cut Song of Arendelle. 3, a green and a blue for a Saga enchantment. Its first lore counter says scry 2, then draw 2 cards. Its second lore counter says create a treasure token and a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying. And its third says put a flying counter on each creature you control without flying. So the third counter does seem cool. I can give all my elves flying. That could be a big thing. But the other 2, I'm not really scrying. I get that there's card draw, but my goodness, this deck draws an absurd amount of cards already. I just didn't think for the mana cost I needed to do all these things. So I cut it out of there. I'm also cutting Model of Unity. It's 3 mana for an artifact. Whenever players finish voting, you and each opponent who voted for a choice you voted for may scry 2. You can also tap it and add 1 mana of any color. I do like the mana rock ability of it, but in this deck, now when we're voting, if your opponent votes what you vote for, you're gonna let them scry too. That just kind of seemed weird to me, and I don't know if I liked that, so I cut it.
Yeah, you're helping out your opponent, which is a very weird thing. And as David said, not a big fan of 3 mana rocks.
Yes, he's not. There are some good ones, but this one might not be that good.
Yeah. And lastly, we did see the additions to your land base. What are some of the lands we're taking out to make room for those?
In the additions, I added 3 new ones. So here in the cuts, we're gonna be actually cutting 4. So I am gonna go down from 37 lands to 36 lands. The first of which is Field of Ruin. It is a land that says tap for a colorless. You can pay 2, tap it, sacrifice Field of Ruins, destroy target non-basic land and opponent controls. Each player searches their library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. I don't know why this is in the deck. It is land destruction, but the fact that I don't know, this card always irks me because you're letting everyone at the table get a land. Like, why are we doing that? I'm also cutting Flooded Grove. It's a land that can tap for a colorless, or you could pay a blue or a green, tap it, add green, 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 blue, blue, blue. It's a little bit of mana fixing, but after playtesting this deck quite a bit, I don't really think you need the land fixing as much. So I'm just going to stick with the other fetches that I'm adding in. And we're also going to cut Tranquil Thicket. It is a land that enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add a green, and it has cycling for a green. So you can pay a green, discard the card, draw a card. I'm not a fan of any lands that come in tapped. It only taps for just a generic green. It's not as good as some of the fetches that we're adding and the low land that we're adding, so I'm going to cut it. And lastly, the one that it will not be replacing anything, we're just going to be cutting a Lonely Basic Island. The deck is heavily skewed in green mana, so we don't need as much blue. So I cut just a basic blue.
Yeah, all those lands make sense to me. Field of Ruin, always one of the first ones to get cut in my decks. But is that the entire deck?
That is the additions and the cuts for the 300, buddy.
All right. So my question to you is, what is the total amount of money you spent on this deck?
Well, at the time of recording, if you grab all the $100 editions and now this $300 edition, the total will come out to $298.13.
Wow, that is right on the money. Congratulations.
I tried, man. I tried.
I am terrified of this $300 upgrade. I can't wait to play against it when we do our $300 upgrade battle.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to play this deck again. The $100 game we played was very fun. This deck performed pretty well. No spoilers, but I can't wait to play the 300.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts on the deck itself?
I think my final thoughts is that out of the 4 decks you can grab, this might not be the highest up there, but it is fun. And if you are a fan of playing elves, I do think you're going to have a lot of fun with this deck. And I was a fan.
Yeah, the incorporation of blue into elves with this set really makes it go different. But that is going to do it for us today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Go down, leave a comment. Let Shane know if you enjoyed this upgrade, or if you think he's missing something that should have been added, or did he remove something that you did not like. Always interested in all of your comments. As a reminder, you can find his Moxfield link of the entire deck list in the description down below. Click on that, play test the deck, run it yourself. Also in the description, you will find links to our Instagram, our Twitter, and our TikTok. That is at Guys That Magic for each one. Follow us on all of those to keep up to date with everything else that we got going on. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye bye.